Hello everyone, I'm your cartoon and animation fanatic Channel Hopper, and the channels I hop through are good enough to review. As a 90s kid, I enjoyed a number of the original cartoons from the action-packed Powerpuff Girls to the dark and surreal atmosphere of Courage the Cowardly Dog, but none came close to the slapstick and misadventures of a suburban trio who shared the same name. I'm talking about Edd, and Eddy.
Edd, Eddy!
So without wasting any more time, let's start from the beginning. The show first debuted on Cartoon Network back in 1999 and was created by Canadian animator Danny Antonucci. The show centers around our three titular characters, Edd the lovable goofball, Double D the genius and uptight one of the group, and Eddy the money-obsessed leader with an anger issue. The show takes place during summer vacation in the town of Peach Creek and focuses on the Edds trying to become popular amongst the neighborhood kids, while also coming up with scams to trick the kids out of their money for jawbreakers. However, the scams don't always work out due to some oversight or miscalculation on their part and leaves them at 2 steps back than where they started before. Another aspect of the show that's worth mentioning is the humor. It's a well-balanced blend of wordplay, adult innuendos, situational humor, and most of all, slapstick.
Ow! Look out!
Some have compared it to the comedic antics of the Three Stooges, but I also like to think it parallels old Tex Avery cartoons as well. The show sounds simple enough, but my favorite part would have to be the scams themselves. Not only are they creatively convoluted as the next, but they give the characters a sense of direction as well as being a perfect segue into the next adventure. However, not every episode centers around the Edds scamming kids. Most of the time you would see them just hanging out in various locations in the neighborhood until they come across something that could benefit them. While the Edds are considered the bad guys among the kids in the neighborhood, I wouldn't consider them the antagonists of the show because the title of that belongs to the Kenko sisters. They're the crazy obsessed admirers of the Edds who show up from time to time to torture the neighborhood kids and to harass the Edds. To me, I consider the Edds as misguided in their endeavors to become popular due to Eddy's poor leadership skills, which we'll have to go over when we get to the character portion of this video. The show really sets it apart from many others around its time, mainly due to how the style and animation complements its main cast. Each character is given a different walk cycle, run cycle, and even blink differently in order for everyone to stand out. Every little action they do gives us a clear indication of their personalities, their strengths, and flaws. A good example of this would have to be the opening title itself. From the intro, we can see that Eddy wants to be the center of attention and is quick to anger. Double D likes things to be perfect but is quite timid as hinted by him passing out at the end. And Edd is clumsy and absent-minded. All this in the time span of only 30 seconds. Now, based on the animation of the trio, you can tell this isn't your typical Hanna-Barbera production cartoon, but instead a product of Danny's own aka production studio. As the expressions are more exaggerated, the characters have thick outlines that look as though they're in constant motion. Nicknamed the boiling line effect, this style has been used to great effect, similar to home movies and Dr. Katz squiggle vision technique. Each character is traced over 3 times in order to give the illusion of motion even in a static position, which is something rarely seen in cartoons nowadays. All of these different elements come together to bring us a colorful cast of characters that can certainly stand out in their own over-the-top manner. The show only consists of 13 characters with the exception of Eddy's older brother, which we'll have to discuss later on in another video. Each character is utilized to a certain degree and is given enough quirks and humor to make them unique in their own memorable way. First up are our 3 titular characters. Edd, voiced by Matt Hill, is the lovable dimwit of the group who loves comic books, monsters and sci-fi movies, and lots of gravy.
Is that gravy you're consuming?
Plenty for everyone! Who needs a ladle?
I mean, this guy really loves his gravy. He's also the most unhygienic character of the show and dislikes soap and eating vegetables. Although he might not have anything meaningful to say most of the time, he's always the dependable one who's the supporting force to his friends. Even though Ed may seem nonsensical from time to time, it's his straightforward approach to obstacles combined with his unlimited strength that helps him get through any situation. Ed usually goes along with the scams that Eddie comes up with and is often in charge of the more physical work. However, some of the scams often fail due to his simple-mindedness or clumsy nature. What makes Ed stand out the most is the sheer randomness of his character, from him spouting out odd sentences to him escalating a situation without warning. Even with his mishaps and lack of intelligence, Ed is still a nice guy and a good friend. Next up is Ed, or better known as Double D, played by Samuel Vincent. He's the smart one of the group, thus making him the more level-headed one of the three Eds and even the whole neighborhood. He's easily the most respected out of the three Eds, but does have his blunders every now and then. Double D likes to think before acting and is usually the one that comes up with a solution to intricate problems. Ed is also very resourceful when it comes to his engineering skills. He can make anything out of pretty much anything he gets his hands on. However, what he has in brain power, he lacks in physical strength. He tends to avoid any form of physical exercise or contamination and insists on cleaning and organizing his environment. When it comes to the scams, he's often the brains of the operation and tries to guide his friends on the right path, but his foresight and integrity is often ignored by the other two, thus resulting in the scam failing due to their inability to cooperate with one another. While his clever thinking and careful planning goes unnoticed, he's willing to get back up on his feet and learn from his mistakes in order to have better luck at succeeding the next time. But I can't help but think there's one last thing I forgot to mention. Oh yeah, we never found out what's under his hat. Throughout the entire series and the TV movie special, we never got a clear answer as to what's under Double D's hat, but that hasn't stopped the many fan theories that followed. As for me, I could care less what's under there because even the creator at this point doesn't want us to know, and the show is over, so we'll never get an answer. And with that said, we now come to Eddie, voiced by Tony Sampson. Eddie considers himself the leader of the group and the driving force behind the scams. He's the front man of the operation who sells the scams to the neighborhood kids and usually takes all the credit and leaves his two friends to clean up or take the blame when the scam fails, thus making him the most rejected member of the Eds due to his power-hungry nature and selfish ways. Eddie goes about life by cutting corners and cheating the system in order to skip the work and get right to his goal. Heck, he would even neglect his own friends if it's in his best interest. Eddie tends to live in his own world and believes himself to be the most respected person in the neighborhood, as evidenced from the episode Once Upon an Ed. However, many of Eddie's negative traits can be traced back to his older brother, who's been a major influence in his life. While I would love to talk more about our three main characters, the show wouldn't be complete without its supporting cast. I'm actually surprised that the supporting characters are just as memorable as our three main characters. You have Sarah, the annoying loudmouth little sister to Ed. She's definitely my least favorite character in the show, and she's such a brat to Ed and proceeds to pummel him and his friends on a regular basis. Next up is her best friend Jimmy, the soft and fragile child who's prone to accidents.
Sarah! Howie!
He's a proud member of the Urban Rangers group and is usually a victim of Eddie's scams. Next up we have Johnny and Plank. These two are also members of the Urban Rangers and both demonstrate a free-spirited lifestyle. Johnny often listens to the advice of his imaginary friend Plank, who he carries with him everywhere he goes. He's also one of the few people that can tolerate the Eds on a daily basis and finds those scams to be quite entertaining until he feels like he's been swindled out of his money.
Me and Blank want our money back! Sarah's interruption constituted a refund, Eddie. Johnny and Rolf were not impressed.
Refund?
Plank is also a very unique character as he's treated like any other person among the neighborhood kids and even gets his own allowance. He's even been seen moving and driving vehicles on his own, which has led others to believe that he's actually sentient. Our next character is Wolf, and he's a foreign farmer kid from a distant country. It's never clear as to where he's from exactly, but that doesn't stop him from practicing his culture among the cul-de-sac. He's also the leader of the Urban Rangers group, and just like Johnny, he can tolerate the Eds until they make a fool of him by ripping him off, messing with his livestock, or insulting his culture. He's also my favorite supporting character because of his unusual customs and sayings that are just so funny to listen to. And is that a giant clam?
To this day, Rove seeks comfort from Bobo when he is frightened.
Is that a giant clam? No, Kevin, that's a giant crustacean.
So, moving on. Naz is the sweet and kind-hearted love interest of the neighborhood and seems to be kind to everyone, including the Edds, until they bother her or rip her off as well. And lastly, we have the neighborhood jock named Kevin. He has a strong dislike of the Edds and often refers to them as the dorks of the cul-de-sac and tends to bully them from time to time. And lastly, we have Lee, Marie, and May Kanker, who are 3 girls from the nearby trailer park who are obsessed with the Edds and would often rob them of their money or harass them physically. With characters out of the way, let's move on to our next topic. Overall, the show has had a total of 6 seasons and 4 holiday specials, as well as a few episodes that never made it to production, including a big chunk of season 6 that was left unfinished. With that said, all these characters still managed to hold up in the later seasons as they're now enrolled in middle school and the Edds proceed to embark on more over-the-top shenanigans in their new environment. Another important aspect of the show worth mentioning is the growth or evolution of these characters over the changing seasons of the show. For starters, I think Double D is by far the most developed character in the show, as he started out as a shy, quiet, and compulsive neat freak in the early seasons, and by season 4 he's developed a more outspoken and sarcastic personality. Heck, he's even willing to participate in sports even though he wasn't always the physical type. But I think this is due to him being overworked by Eddie over the years that gives him the courage to be more active in life. Edd and Eddy have also changed, but not to the extent that Double D has. I feel that Eddie has gotten lazier while in school and he's more of a short fuse now, which is kind of getting annoying every now and then.
Says you.
Don't prove it!
Edd, on the other hand, still manages to be funny with his dimwit nature and one-liners, but he has proven to be intellectual and responsible at times. While I would love to go over the supporting characters, this video is already too long as it is, so I'll just skip to the last topic. All of these aspects lead up to the show's most crowning achievement in the TV movie special called Edd and Eddy's Big Picture Show. The movie follows the Edds on the run from the other kids after the scam to end all scams goes horribly wrong, and now set on one last adventure to find Eddie's older brother who will give them shelter from the others. The movie does a great job at building up the suspense in the beginning and gives enough screen time to each of the characters, as it's a race against time to see who can get to the Edds first before they reach their destination. We get some nice character moments between the Edds, there's plenty of slapstick humor and new locations worth appreciating, all building up to the final confrontation between the Edds and the cul-de-sac kids meeting Eddie's older brother. I do plan to do a full review of the movie, so I don't want to go over too much right now. So the series has to come to an end, and so must the review. All in all, the show was one of Cartoon Network's longest running programs with over 10 years under its belt. I do intend to make a top 10 video of my favorite episodes, as well as go over individual episodes to further examine the show, but that's for another time. Let me know what you all thought about the show in the comments below. As always, I'm Channel Hopper, and the next review is just a click away.